Hey everybody, we're going to do the 1993 Conlin break today. This first video is going to be for Brandon. He bought the first two quadrants, which is the first upper left hand side and upper right hand side quadrants. As long as when I open up the box, that's the way they're fixed. If not, we'll figure it out. I was trying to figure out the best way to do this. I don't know if it's better to like hold the cards up this way or to lower it down, but I think it's better to lower it. Y'all can see the cards better. Yeah, I think that's going to work out better. This is what the box looks like. Any better that y'all can see or not? We're breaking into a box that 92, so we're doggone what, 27 years old. And yes, they are in 4 quadrants, like I figured they would be. And these are Brandon's quadrants. I'm going to try to do them in one video, but if I can't, I'll do them in 2, because I don't want to have to stop breaking in the middle, because this is the second quadrant, which y'all can't see, but okay, that's the second quadrant, first quadrant. So with that, start breaking. See what we get. Very nice cello packs. That's nice. We've got Connie Mack. Talking about all I did for baseball. And there's a story for each one of them. Here's a checklist, which is neat because I'm not exactly sure who is in this set, but this one did get a checklist. I'm actually kind of glad that the checklist came out. I'm going to set that to the side in case I need it later with this. We got Pepper Martin of the Cardinals. Now keep in mind, this is going, oh, it's got the years on them too, sorry. I'll say that for these. This one's from 1930, he's from 1932. This is Heine Sand, and he's from 1923. He played for the Philadelphia Phillies. Bucky Harris, youngest manager to win the World Series for the Detroit Tigers in 1930. Walter Schmidt, Pittsburgh Pirates catcher from 1921. Ed Ruback pitched 2 shutouts on the same day in 1916, and he played for, well, if I can see it, looks like the Boston Red Sox. Then we got Roger Hornsby, St. Louis Cardinals, 1925. Cliff Houghton, the Washington Senators, 1933. Red Faber, Chicago White Sox pitcher, 1917. Charlie Gehringer, Detroit Tigers, second base, 1927. Kurt Walker, Cincinnati Reds, outfield, 1929, which actually they must have changed what the current name is, because the Cincinnati Reds were the Cincinnati Red Legs back then, so I do know that. So they've changed them to the current names of what they are today, I guess. Even though the Washington Senators doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Jim Levy, St. Louis Browns, kind of proved my point wrong there. 1932. Apparently Cincinnati Reds have already changed over in 1923. I thought it was later than that. Earl Moore, Philadelphia Phillies, 1913. And Ernie Shore, Senators versus Red Sox, 6/23/17. And there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Looks like there's 14 cards per, no, plus the checklist, so there's actually 15 cards per pack. So it may actually take me a separate video to do this for each quadrant, because this little YouTube only allows me to tape for 30 minutes and then it cuts me off. P. Traynor, 1937. He was a miraculous fielder, that's what it says. Seal Johnson, St. Louis Cardinals, 1928. Hy Bell, St. Louis Cardinals, 1929. Phil Weintraub, New York Giants, 1935. Bill Terry, last National League player to bat 400, 1927. It just says Jeep, Cleveland Indians, 1935. Roy Hartzell, thanks for the former team with 8 RB. Oh, thanks his former team for the with 8 RBIs in 1913. Harvey Hendrick, Chicago Cubs, 1933. Maury Arnovich, 1940, Cincinnati Reds. Sharif Blake, however you pronounce it, Chicago Cubs, 1925. Percy Jones, Chicago Cubs, 1926. Duff Lickey, Cincinnati Reds, 1926. Well, Brandon's going to be happy because he's getting a bunch of Cincinnati Reds fans. He's a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. He's getting a bunch of Cincinnati Reds in his group. George McQuinn, St. Louis Browns, first base, 1940. Johnny Vandermeer, Reds versus Dodgers, 6/15/38. And the last one is Dutch Leonard, Red Sox versus Tigers, 6/3/18. 6/3/18. It's really strange seeing 18 knowing they're talking about 1918, not 2018. So, that's the second pack. Frankie Rush, St. Louis, 1938. Ripper Collins, St. Louis Cardinals, 1933. JoJo White, Detroit Tigers, 1935. Hank Aaronberg, hit pennant winning homer, 1934. John Whitehead, Chicago White Sox, 1935. Emil Yiddy, 1925. Remarkable rookie year. Tony Piet, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1932. Kiddo Davis, New York Giants, 1933. Mike, 1922. Al Wingo played just one full season, hit 370, 1924. Johnny Mize finally gets into a World Series in 1942. His card's worth a lot. I've seen Johnny Mize's cards going for quite a bit of money if they're original. That'd been a nice one to get an autograph for, I can tell you that. Johnny Basler, Detroit Tigers, 1926. Hank Lobert, Philadelphia Phillies, 1936. Bob Feller, Indians versus White Sox, 4/16/40. Another one been a great one to get an auto for. And Hippo Vaughn, Reds versus Cubs, 5/2/17. It looks like this is a 1905 to 1942 classic photos collection. And the 20,000 autos are all from players during that time frame. So basically you're looking at probably Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner cards for sure in here during that time frame. So hopefully we'll get some good ones. Hugo Bezdik, 1917. Another checklist. Ed Montgomery, St. Louis Cardinals, 1911. Dell Alexander, Detroit Tigers, 1929. Herb Brennick, The Knight and the Babe, 1928. There's a story on the back, I'm sure, that talks about Babe Ruth with it talking about the Babe. Jackie Tavner, Detroit Tigers, 1928. Mel Amada scored 3 runs in one day, 1937. Napla Joe, Philadelphia Athletics, 1915. Dixie Walker, Detroit Tigers, 1938. Benny Cuff, New York Giants, 1917. By the way, they definitely did put the actual autographs in here because I did find one on eBay that was for sale. Stan Gillespie, New York Yankees, 1928. He was actually up there too. It wasn't even a player I heard of, and it was over $200. Jim Bottomley, 1928. I guess if you think about it, even the commons during this time frame, when his signature would be worth that much. Dusty Cook, Boston Red Sox, 1936. Bill Denon, American League umpire, 1925. But he dressed nice for an umpire back then, didn't he? And finally, Hod Eller, Cardinals versus Reds, with a really nice picture of his Reds uniform, 5/11/19. Let's see what's left here. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely do the second video for Brandon's second quadrant. I'll get this one open. Bob Groom, White Sox versus the Browns, 5/6/17. Another checklist. Don Guthridge, St. Louis Cardinals, 1936. I'm starting to think that there was a checklist in every one of these packs. So I've opened 3 packs of. No, I've opened 4 packs and I got 3, so I guess there's not. Oh, there's 3 checklists and I've opened 4 packs. Okay. Jimmy Ring, New York Giants, 1926. Bill McKechnie, 4 pennants with 3 different teams, 1930. Billy Zitzman, Cincinnati Reds, 1926. John Hauser held an American League record for total bases, 1928. I saw this pose and thought for sure it was a Babe Ruth, but it's actually a Jimmy Fox, which is still good. I'd love to have that photo autograph for you, Brandon. 1933, Jimmy Fox. He played for the Philadelphia Athletics. Sam Leslie, New York Giants, 1936. Reb Russell, Chicago White Sox, 1917. Bill Clem, National League umpire, 1921. Chuck Klein, Pigeons Came Roaring Out, 1936. Okay, it's a nice thing to be known for. Larry French, Chicago Cubs, 1936. Ernie Nevers, St. Louis Browns, 1927. So, from the years these, it looks like St. Louis actually had two teams at one time during the same time frame, the Browns and the Cardinals, because some of these are in the same year. Jim Tobin, Dodgers versus Braves, 4/27/44. See the checklist? Yeah, I'm starting to make a checklist. All right, there's Hugo Besdick, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1917. Ed Cotchley, St. Louis Cardinals, 1911. Del Alexander, Detroit Tigers, 1929. Herb Pinnock, The Knight and the Babe, 1928. So something happened with The Knight and the Babe, because there's been a couple of them with that in there. Jackie Tavener, Detroit Tigers, 1928. Mel Amata scored 9 runs in one day, 1937. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Naplajo, Philadelphia Athletics, 1915. Dixie Walker, Detroit Tigers, 1935. Benny Koff, New York Giants, 1917. Stan Kowalski, New York Yankees, 1928. I think it's the first Yankees card I've actually seen through this so far. Jim Bottomley, Just Throw in the Direction, 1928, sorry. Dusty Cook, Boston Red Sox, and that's 1936. This is a duplicate of the umpire card from before. And this is a duplicate of Hodfeller. So, to try to help speed it up a little bit, if I remember it's a duplicate, I'll just say that instead of showing the same card over again. Check on time here. 7 minutes and 3 packs. That should be okay, I think. I don't know though. It was 16 minutes while ago. Connie Mack, double. Checklist. Pepper Martin, St. Louis Cardinals, 1932. Honey Sand double. Bucky Harris, youngest manager and to win a World Series, 1930. Detroit Tigers. Actually, I think it was a double too. I just read it. Walter Schmidt, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1921. Ed Rublock, Pitts 2 shutouts on same day, 1916. Rogers Hornsby, St. Louis Cardinals, 1925. Another famous one. Cliff Bolton, Washington Senators, 1933. They do have some good pictures in here for that time frame. Red Faber duplicate. Charlie Gehringer, Detroit Tigers, 1937. Kurt Walker, Cincinnati Reds, 1929. I think there's actually been more Reds cards than anything, so it worked out well. Jim Levy, double. Earl Moore, Philadelphia Phillies, 1913. And Ernie Shore, Senators versus Red Sox, 6/23/17. Bob Graham, White Sox versus Browns, 5/6/17. That's a checklist I threw off the side. Don Guthridge, St. Louis Cardinals, third base, 1938. Jimmy Ring, New York Giants, 1926. Bill McKenzie, 4 pennants with 3 different teams, 1930. That's actually a duplicate. Bill Zitzman, Cincinnati Reds, 1926. Joe Hauser, had an AL record for total bases, 1928. Come on, give me a Babe Ruth or Honus Wagner or something. Here's another Jimmy Fox duplicate, but that's a good duplicate to have. You're going to have one. Sam Leslie, New York Giants, 1936. Reb Russell, Chicago White Sox, 1917. The Empire double duplicate. Chuck Klein. The Pigeons, 1 duplicate. Larry French, Chicago Cubs, 1936. St. Louis Browns for Ernie Nevers, 1927. Jim Tobin, Dodgers versus Braves, 4/27/14. And this is the last pack. Hey, no checklist in this one. Tris Speaker, 344 career average and just 1 title, 1912. It's just going to go a little bit over, but I think it'll be okay. Chuck Haley, St. Louis Cardinals, 1929. Seems like it'll let me go like 2 minutes over. Dizzy Dean, St. Louis Cardinals, 1933. Cliff Melton, New York Giants, 1940. Elam Van Gilder, St. Louis Browns, 1925. Bob Johnson, 8 RBIs in 1 game, 1933. Here's a Tykov. We finally found one. Tykov. Detroit Tigers, 1909. I'll put that in a top loader for you. Betty Meyer, Washington Senators, 1932. Jack Graney, 1911, Cleveland Indians. Ruber Bressman, Chicago Cubs, 1913. Goose Goslin, that's a good one. I Never Could Wait for Spring, 1934. Odell Hale, Cleveland Indians, 1935. 2 cards left, or 3 cards maybe. Ivar Swanson, Cincinnati Reds, 1926. Lon Warnke, Cardinals versus the Reds, 8/30/41. And Ernie Koob, White Sox versus the Browns, 5/5/17. I'm going to go ahead and upload this one now to make sure it works with being a little over, and I will see you all for the second part in just a little bit.